Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cryptocurrent. Just one quick reminder. Cryptocurrent is a cryptocurrency and blockchain education platform that's bridging the gap between the curious newcomers who are just discovering the space and the thought leaders who are shaping its future. All opinions expressed by Richard Carthon, the Cryptocurrent team, and their guests on this show are exclusively their own opinions. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Richard, the team, and their guests as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow as financial advice. This show and any other Cryptocurrent production is exclusively for informational purposes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And today I have a very special guest all the way out in Columbus, Ohio, working on a really cool protocol that I'm excited to learn more about, doing really cool things in the AR space, gaming space, and so much more. We have Gould, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Dexioprotocol. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It's really great to be here. You know, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to talk to you and all of your listeners because I appreciate and respect what you do, man.
I appreciate that, man. And, we had a really good, pleasant conversation leading up to this actual interview. And I'm excited to unpack a lot of what we just spoke about. But before we do all of that, first I want to learn a little bit more about you. Can you give us some background on yourself?
Yeah, I'm 45 years old. I'm obviously American. I grew up out in the Bay Area in California during the whole tech cycle. So I actually grew up in Silicon Valley and right in the midst of Hewlett Packard and Apple and all those things happening. So I have kind of a near and dear place in my heart for all things, technology. But I've been in business for myself for about 20 years. And I've managed all kinds of different types of businesses for other people too, and done a bunch of consulting work. So I would describe myself as a businessman, but really I'm just an enthusiastic advocate for whatever interesting thing is around me. So that's why I've gotten into a bunch of different businesses. I own a music lesson company here in Ohio. A bunch of music teachers that work for me that I was a music teacher, and it just kind of evolved into that. I have a construction company. I have some friends in construction, and so I just kind of got involved in that. I had a juice company at one point. I sold that to some people who were really excited about continuing that after I had kind of, come to a place where I no longer wanted to invest my time in that, particular business. So I've done a lot of different things, and I got into crypto. Actually, I made my first investment in Bitcoin through a friend of mine in I think late 2017. And made a little bit of money, and then kind of got out of it and didn't, was happy to have gotten out of it during the 2018 crash. And then, a couple years ago, my cousin, who lives out in California, and her husband really started to talk a lot to me about not just crypto, but blockchain technology. And I got really excited about what that could mean, and the how early we are on it. I'm 45, right? So I remember the evolution of the internet. And I remember being, in my first apartment in 1995 and somebody coming to install a 14.4 dial-up modem and being really excited about it. Like, man, right. It's so fast. And here we are 27 years later, right? And we're all carrying around supercomputers in our pockets that do, stuff that literally could put you on the moon, right?
Right.
And so it's like, okay, blockchain is in that 1995 dial-up internet phase, right? I'm going to get more involved in this. And so that's how I ended up getting back into the space.
It's really cool, man. Like we've had a couple of serial entrepreneurs that ultimately got into this space, and a lot of them kind of share that same enthusiasm of being able to see Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, which is now, as we head into Web 3.0, which is blockchain, and seeing this as the super early stages of this development of this new technology, and just how much opportunity is still in this space. Like a lot of people think like, oh, I missed the boat. Oh, I'm too late, et cetera. And it's like, no, we are still so significantly early into this. And you brought up something that you follow your curiosities, you follow your passions, and this is where it kind of brought you in this space. What about, blockchain technology and all the different facets in which you can get involved? What niche part of it, as you learn more about this, you're like, that sounds really cool. Now I want to start working on this element of it.
Yeah. So I think the thing, this, more sort of broader sense of this is, we have civilization because people started writing things down, right? That's
right.
That's the basis of, if you have a small group of people, you can kind of keep track of stuff. But once you have a larger group of people, you have to create ledgers to figure out who has what, who owes who what, how much you need of this, right? And so ledgers are the basis of all civilization. And what is a blockchain really? It's a digital ledger. We've had digital ledgers in many forms prior to blockchain, but it's a very specific type of digital ledger that allows you to, through basically a computer program, through an application, allows you to write onto that blockchain, write onto that ledger in an immutable way. Okay, to me, that is super exciting. Okay, now we have a way to record information at light speed, and that can be applied to almost anything. And once the information is recorded, it can't be changed. Okay, that's awesome. Now we have transparency and we have authenticity, right? It's absolutely, it is, we joke on my dev teams, right? Whenever something goes on and somebody's like, whatever, like check the block is truth, right? The block is truth. Like who doesn't love truth unless you're a liar, right? So that's the thing that I think is the most exciting thing to me in that sort of general sense. But the applications of that are like super endless, right? And this is what we were talking about, how recent events have spawned some questioning amongst people who are not maybe in the space yet, right? What's going on with crypto. But the idea that you can record information in an immutable way across any type of medium, right, in and of itself is, probably the most important thing to happen since the advent of the internet. Because medical, financial records, educational records, even simple things that we don't even really think of. So, like, as a concert goer, right, you have, Ticketmaster has always had problems. There's always efficiency issues. There's always, transparency issues, right?
Right.
NFTs fix that. NFT tickets fix that whole problem. And to me, the most important thing that you can ever do is when you're trying to do something in a coordinated effort with other people, you want to do one of three things. You want to solve a problem, make something more efficient, or provide quality to somebody's life, right? Non-quantifiable value, entertainment, whatever, joy. Blockchain technology does all of those things, right? It solves a problem of efficiency. It solves a lot of problems of recording, information in an immutable way, and it solves an efficiency problem, with everything being automated. There's inherent problems in that too, which we need to work through, especially with like the decentralized autonomous organizations and some of the DeFi stuff. There's some problems there, right? We need to work through those problems, but it's really exciting to see the application, even something simple, like I said, like NFT technology, being applied to tickets to concert going or to whatever you want. It can be applied to all kinds of different, systems in which we need access to things, and we need to prove our ability to have access to those things in a way that cannot be faked, right? That, to me, again, let's go back to truth and transparency. I'm all about things being trustable, and the blockchain is trustable. It is a trustable resource.
Yeah, and done in a decentralized way to where you can put trust into your data. Like your dev says, go back to the blockchain. Just go there. It doesn't lie. It's all there. And on that point, as we look into what you've been building over at Dexioprotocol, you are trying to be the pioneers of the blockchain revolution, like everything that you've just been talking about. Creating a vision of a world where blockchain technology is mainstream and more people are connected to it. So going after the mainstream adoption. So can you explain what is Dexioprotocol and what are some of the things that you're doing to help bring that mass adoption to the world?
So Dexioprotocol was originally started by Don Reika, who's my business partner and the chief executive officer for Dexioprotocol. And I often do these interviews. We're sort of like one hive mind.
Right.
Because Don is he's Dutch, and though he speaks very good English, he's all these things are generally done in English, and so he likes it, And plus, I like to talk. I never met a camera, right? So I never met a microphone. I didn't. So he started it with the idea that he'd built a prototype for an augmented reality application that actually used image recognition technology to scan whatever you wanted it to scan through the image recognition. So he had first started out by recognizing this Buddha statue he had, which is now kind of a funny video for us to watch because of how far the application has come since then. But so he had this idea that he wanted to develop, for lack of a better description, a Pokemon Go for crypto using image recognition technology and the scanning function. So that was how the whole genesis of it started. And with, again, the vision in mind of, hey, let's bring more people into crypto. Most statistics, it's kind of hard to get, hard statistics on this, but, roughly 3 to 5% of the world population is investing in or engaged in crypto. That's pretty low, right? So there's lots of room for more people to come in, to adopt, right? So he had this idea in mind. I actually invested in Dexio about a month after it, not quite a month, maybe 3 weeks after it first launched. And then him and I just kind of hit it off, and he asked me to be his business partner. And from there, we, evolved the concept beyond that. And that flagship augmented reality application we now call Dexi Hunter is in a limited beta right now in 5 cities. It's about to go into a much larger beta here shortly, and we'll talk about that, I think. But the concept itself was, okay, how do we bring people into blockchain is important. Blockchain is the future. How do we bring people in? Okay. And so, of course, that flagship application that we now call Dexi Hunter was part of that. But we started thinking about, okay, how do we engage new things? How do we become connected to other people? What's the best way to do that? We do that by playing games, right? When you're in grade school or in primary school, how do they teach you things? You sing songs, the ABC song is a song. Right?
Yeah.
You sing songs, you play games, you interact with each other on a basis where there's a quality function to it, right? Not just a quantifiable thing, but a qualifiable thing. You're connecting to and interacting with people through gaming, right? When you go on corporate retreats, even, what do? They play games. When you become part of a church or a synagogue or a mosque, typically the kids in those youth ministries play games, right? So gaming is a great way to kind of disarm people, right? Because people are armed in a way against crypto, right? And one of the things that we've found and is very true, and there's actually starting to be some statistics on this, traditional gamers, people who call themselves self-identified gamers, they're not playing blockchain NFT-based games, right? Because they are, as I said, they're kind of armed against it. So we want to disarm people. Like, hey, this blockchain's it's not a scam. It's not bad. Whatever, nonsense is being promoted out there by the corporate media. This is really cool stuff. Here's a really fun game that you can play, and you can interact with the blockchain. You can interact with crypto through this game. And so we wanted to build a suite of gaming applications that really allowed for people from all different walks of life, from all over the world, to be able to find something that they liked. Right. So we started thinking about different types of games, mobile games, desktop games. We have a sword fighting game that we call Dexi Knights. It's like an arcade style sword fighting game. We have a build your team of dragons mobile game that we're about to put into beta too. So we have some different stuff. And then we wanted to be able to allow people to play those games without crypto. And this is really important about what our whole mission is, right? We want adoption. So we're not going to force it on people. You can play our games. You don't have to connect to the blockchain. You don't have to get a wallet. You can have fun playing the games. There are some play to earn functions that are non-blockchain related. Okay. And I don't know to go into a huge amount of detail about that, but it is possible to do that. And But you can also earn crypto and NFTs in these games. And if you don't get a wallet and don't figure this out, you can't really get them. So I kind of joke, it's like we're drug dealers, like here's an NFT, man. Here's a taste,
That's how you get them in, huh? Get them a little,
get them hooked, right?
But I want to spend a second on that, though. You bring up a good point of how do you get to a place where people are disarming themselves and also buying in? And gaming is a good way of doing that. No matter what kind of social environment you're in, you have the icebreaker games, or you have like all these other things that you do when you first meet people to try to understand each other a little bit more and do it in a way that's, again, disarming and allowing you to be more welcoming of the information that's trying to be presented. So if that is the entry point in which people are now coming in, engaging with blockchain and doing these things, and again, you have a lot of different things going on. You have a bunch of different games. You have an NFT play, but you really have this augmented reality, which is, I think, very unique, especially to this space. And a lot of people aren't spending as much time at this particular time. Can you kind of unpack a little bit more of how can people come in and use some of the augmented reality gaming that you have?
Yeah. So again, Dexi Hunter is our flagship application. And in essence, there are augmented reality bounties all over soon to be all over the world. Currently, they're in 5 cities. But and so when we drop those bounties, we can specifically drop them wherever we want to, and we also have obviously basically an algorithm that will drop them in certain radial areas, right? So and there's a bunch of different types of assets that people can collect. It's not just one thing. It's not just So there's NFTs, and we've selected some NFTs. Our own market, we have 2 marketplaces because we have 2 tokens, which I'll talk about in a second. But so they can get NFTs from our marketplaces, but we're also buying NFTs from other marketplaces, from Engine, from OpenSea, from Bakery Swap, and from SoulSea, and we're giving those out too as part of that, right? So they collect these NFTs. They can collect a number of different types of what I would call mainstream cryptos. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, TRX, a bunch of stuff. Link, okay? You can go to our website, Dexioprotocol.com, and just search under the Dexi Hunter gaming page and see all the different stuff that we're putting in the application. Then we're also putting partner projects. So right now, currently, the only project that we're partnering with is our friend John Wingate at Bank Social. If you're not familiar with that, you should check out his project. Very cool, interesting stuff that he's doing in the lending banking space with crypto. He's got a really cool DAO too. So we're partnering with them, and we're going to be dropping their crypto in the application too. And then we also have a non-blockchain in-game currency that we call Dexi Cash, and that's the way that we provide a non-blockchain resource. Think kind of like Robux, right? It's like a same idea, right? And then here's where things get really interesting. Not that it's not already interesting, but we also can drop QR codes for partnering businesses for people to be able to collect and redeem at those businesses. Okay. So this is revenue generation for us and a form of advertising and marketing for those businesses, right? So there's these bounties. They're geotagged all over the place. You open up your phone, your Dexi Hunter application, which I'd be happy to get you the test flight for if you like, or I don't know if you're an Android or iOS user, but we can get you whatever you need. And we can drop some bounties right on your head if you want to, and you can. But so you open it up, and just like with Pokemon Go, there's an AR screen. You see the augmented reality object in a container, and that container opens up. There's a whole animation sequence, and out pops out that crypto or whatever that you're collecting, the Dexi Cash or the NFT or whatever. You collect that. It gets stored as basically a placeholder inside your application. And then you go through a process where you request to have that actually sent to you. And then we have deployer wallets that send those out to people. Okay. So the mechanics of it are, I kind of joke because I was talking with this venture capitalist, and he was like, how are you going to get around the whole iOS problem? I said, well, it's because I have analog thinking in a digital world. I built this whole system to sort of avoid the crypto portion of having interactions of actual crypto inside of the iOS application. So it looks like they are going to approve us all the way. We're approved for public beta and all that stuff. So I think we're in the clear.
Awesome. Congrats. That's a That's a big hurdle.
It is actually. The thing that they kept pushing back on us about was actually the way we had our login system, because we use a third-party resource for security reasons. So we're not handling the authentication of somebody's login. So basically, we've hired we've essentially hired another company to handle the security for us. But the way that was actually working inside the application, the App Store, people kept being like, no, this isn't user friendly. And we were like, oh no, what are we doing? And then finally we got, so we figured it out, what they wanted us to do, and they approved it. So it's good. So that's how that works, right? And so somebody can go out and they can walk around. Now you got move to earn, right?
Right.
You got the play to earn portion. You got the move to earn portion. We have a whole NFT concept that kind of allows different levels of access that we call Dexi badges. And those NFTs are upgradable, meaning that interactions within the game are stored as metadata on the back end of the server. And then that's correlated and related back to the NFT, which gives the NFT basically like a growing value, right? As it has interactions in the game. All of our NFTs, our gaming NFTs, are all upgradable NFTs that work on that basis. And they're walking around, they can upgrade their access by doing more exercise, again, move to earn, right? And then on top of that, we have some, kind of forced action that we can do when they actually collect crypto. So they have to answer a question or maybe follow a Twitter or a lot of different things. And now you have learn to earn. So it's play to earn with move to earn and learn to earn all built into it, right? And it has an augmented reality portion of it. And it has a business model built into it. Revenue generation through the non-blockchain in-game currency Dexi Cash, revenue generation through marketing and advertising, revenue generation through partnerships with other crypto. And we have some other revenue generation ideas that are kind of on the metaverse side of things, but I won't get too deep into that. So it's really an all-encompassing app.
So let me dive into that real quick, just as a recap. So with Dexi Hunter, you'll have the ability to do AR in the sense of, if you've ever played Pokemon Go, you go throughout this AR world where you're moving to earn, aka playing to earn. You find these different cryptos. So let's say that there's Bitcoin, Chainlink, etc., and you get them, but you don't have them in that moment. It's almost like a IOU, if you will. And then at one point you'd be able to redeem, and you actually get paid out in what you've been able to get into your wallet. But then also you can do other things where you can scan in, like if there's like a local business and they'll give you a discount code to go eat at a restaurant or something like that. Or you can also, if you like watch a video to learn about something, at the end of the conclusion of learning about that particular thing, you then get rewarded for learning about that particular thing. For example, if someone's ever been on like Coinbase Earn and you watch a video and then they pay you for watching it, something similar like that.
Yeah. And they ask you to ask a question. That's actually where I got the idea from. Was from Coinbase. Gotcha. Like it was that. I mean, I totally stole that idea. Sorry, Coinbase.
Brian, it's a good one.
He can sue me. No, I mean it's a good idea, but that's where I got the concept from. I was like, okay, so, and yes, what you said is 100% right. Okay, so all of that stuff, that was a much more succinct way. I tend to talk too much. That was a succinct way of putting that, and I appreciate your succinctness.
All good. I like to make sure I bring it all home. But within Dexioprotocol, obviously you have Dexi Hunter, you have a bunch of other games that are within the ecosystem, and there are plenty of ways in which gaming can help bridge the gap between people and mass adoption. But as you kind of like take a step back, you look at the things that you are building. How do you see the gaming space within blockchain evolving over the next year or so? Like obviously with current market conditions, as the technology continues to evolve over the years, like how do you start to see the scale start to tip in the other direction with getting more people flowing into the space?
Yeah, I think we had a big influx over the, kind of late 2020 through, late 2021, right? There was a bunch of people piling in, and now that's sort of slowed down, and actually, people probably exiting, and especially in the midst of what has recently happened, which is unfortunate, but that's the cycle of all things, right? No growth pattern ever looks like that, right? It looks like this, right?
Yeah.
Always, that's just reality. So this is a necessary part of that process, of that cycle. And I think, now what we're going to see is, I use this analogy a lot, and I think you'll probably appreciate this, but it's like a forest fire, right? Forest fires are bad if you live in the forest, and certainly they're bad for lots of things. But natural forest fires are a natural part of the forest life cycle. And what it does do is, though it's terrible and damaging and catastrophic in many ways, it does clear out the dead wood and the underbrush and provides much needed minerals and resources back into the soil that the forest needs to be able to grow to a much more beautiful forest than it was before, right? And I think part of what has happened here is kind of like a forest fire, right? And what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of the projects, tokens that either A, never had good intentions, or B, aren't being managed very well. They're going to get wiped out, right?
Right.
And what's going to happen is, so right now it's really hard to get noticed, and I use this analogy a lot too when I talk to people. It's very hard to be the loudest person in an already very loud room, right?
Right.
It's just like, it's like flashy stuff everywhere. It's like, it's like Times Square, where do I look, and that's kind of how the space has kind of become in terms of trying to get the attention of legitimate investors. People are looking for something quality to invest in. It's just hard to see what that is in the midst of, all the flashy craziness. And what's going to happen, I think now is we're going to see the projects with utility, the projects with good management, the projects with good ideals and transparent, authentic people running those projects. They're going to rise to the top. They're going to get a lot more attention. They're going to get that much needed capital. They're going to get that much needed investment. Those holders, social media momentum. And so we're going to see a shift away from, I think, the meme coins and, I don't know how you feel about this. And the DeFi stuff really worries me because it handing out massive APR on the basis of literally nothing. That's not a sustainable thing, right? We know that. We've watched this happen to Wonderland, to Gyro, and we're going to watch it happen to these other projects that are doing these things. It just can't work, right? You can't just make stuff up out of nothing, right? You can for a little while. And then
you have to find a way to actually have an underlying something of value that can continue to propel it up. I think just to speak to this for a second, I think DeFi overall can work. I think there's a lot of DeFi protocols that didn't fully figure out how to complete the circle, and a lot of those are going to die. And unfortunately, the people who get in at the beginning of the circle do well, and as long as they exit at the right time, they do fine. But what problem is for people who enter that potential DeFi protocol at the end, get stuck left holding the bag, right. And that's hurtful.
Right, and I think if you create a system which it is not possible for it to do anything other than that, that's not an honorable thing to do, right? So, we need to try to create systems that are sustainable. And sustainability is, has got to be, this next evolution, I think, of crypto is going to be a lot about utility and sustainability, right? That's what the forest fire is going to clear way for. And, I said this the other day, but CZ, who I'm not like some, I don't worship CZ by any means, but he has some very potent wisdom that he posts on Twitter sometimes. And one of the things that he did say was, and who knows if he's actually posting it, but anyways, one of the things he did say was, what we're going to see now is projects with utility come to light, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's the truth, right? So I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to see, and in terms of specifically to gaming, there's been some really cool gaming applications that have taken off. In particular, I think everybody, is most familiar with Axie. Axie's done some really interesting things and done a good job with bringing attention to play to earn. They've done some pretty, cool things. They really missed the sustainability thing with Small Love Potion. And they're trying to correct that, right? And they're actually doing some, the cool thing, with the sponsorships, or I can't remember what they're called. Where they, I can't think what the word is, but they let individuals are able to use other people's Axies. So they're doing some cool stuff, and it is kind of bringing some people out of poverty in really poor places, and that's awesome, right? But there is some problems with that, and so I think we're gonna see a move away from unsustainable mechanics in play to earn to sustainable mechanics and play to earn. And that's why we're being cautious about how we're setting things up, and we're being very focused on sustainability. So, we have as I said, we have two tokens. We have Dexi, which is what we call our native token, and eventually we'll move to our own blockchain, which we're working on, and that'll be the native coin of the blockchain. And then we have Dexi Gas, which is our blockchain in-game currency. Okay, and the reason why we wanted to do that is we wanted to have something that could be a store of value, and that could be a measure of obtaining access to governance for the protocol. Okay, and then something that could function as an actual currency that we could control the supply of. Right, so Dexi won't be mintable. It's not mintable now. We want that to be a store of value. We don't want it to we don't need the supply to do this. Dexi Gas, in-game currency that we're using to pay out rewards with, but also people are paying into the system to be able to use the system by buying NFTs off of our NFT marketplace that we generate. Obviously, we have a royalty, portion of that when people resell their NFTs, and it costs Dexi Gas to be able to get access to that those blockchain asset sends in Hunter. So the Dexi Gas is flowing in, and we're using it to send it back out as the reward system, right? That's what an economic system is, right? People are spending it, and then we're rewarding it out, and people are spending it. And as the supply, as demand increases and we need to increase the supply, we can do that. And if demand decreases, we can decrease the supply. And so we can control the situation. We wanted to be able to do that. And so I think you're going to see lots of people that are interested in sustainable mechanics doing similar things, right? It just kind of makes sense, right? You want to try to create a system that sustains itself, that money is flowing in and then flowing back out and flowing in and flowing back out. That's what gross domestic product is, right?
Yeah. So, and that's what you need. The key word here is sustainability. And as you look at a lot of gaming mechanics and even looking at some DeFi protocols, et cetera, the challenges that they faced where they set up things to build momentum, to get people using it, to get people to start putting in money without really solving the problem of, okay, like once all this money comes in, how do you sustain it? Because for the model to work, the money has to come in and then more money has to keep coming in. But what happens if you have a downfall and money starts flowing out? You can't necessarily sustain the momentum that you built. And so and that's why I was talking about earlier, the concept of completing the circle. You'll have 50 to 75% figured out, but that last 25% to keep it as a sustainable business model, that last, let's call it 50 to 25% is where I think a lot of gaming and DeFi protocols are struggling, is to try to close that gap. And it's because it's the chicken and egg scenario. Like, how do you get the people in and start spending money so that you can start getting some cash flow to get it going, to kickstart it and get the momentum built up? And then how do you keep the money flowing so that even if people start to flow out, it can continue to sustain itself without having a more capital injection when you have your downward lulls and having some money in your reserves to be able to keep up whatever system you put in place. So it's an interesting concept. Sounds like y'all are doing a lot to try to help solve those challenges. And I know that I know you said that it's. Can you speak on that actually a little bit for Dexi Hunter, for people who are excited, like they heard this, they're like, oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. I want to play this, especially once it launches to the world. What can they do to participate? So
right now we're running a kind of closed beta in 5 cities. Columbus, where I live, Amsterdam, where Don lives, Manila and Istanbul, where we have 2 very large communities, and then London, where we have some kind of boots on the ground, a good core community there. So, and because we're just trying to, bug test things, get some feedback about the UI and the UX of the application, and then automate some of these systems. So there's some automation that we need to put into place that we just haven't done yet, because we want to make sure things work the way that they should before we automate some of this stuff. So, but then we're going to probably expand into anywhere from 25 to 50 cities in a few weeks. And we'll announce what those cities are, but they're going to be some pretty obvious ones. Austin is definitely going to be one, because we're all going to be there for Consensus in June. So not all of us, but 7 of us from my team are going to be there for Consensus. So we're going to kind of do an Austin takeover. We're going to try to get people at Consensus to download the application and Hunt Crypt. I'm going to put a bunch of really cool stuff right in the conference. So it's going to be right there. So Austin, other major cities, that are sort of obvious: New York, LA, Tokyo, all of Singapore. We're going to do a bunch of places, and really just joining our following our Twitter, Dexioprotocol is our handle, joining our Telegram chat, Dexio chat, following any of our social media, you're going to find out what those cities are going to be. And it's going to, there'll be a beta link that we'll be able to provide for iOS for Apple users. And then what's called an ABB file, which sometimes, it used to be the APK file, but an ABB file that we can provide for Android users. And then actually there's a beta, kind of a public beta link that we can push through the Play Store. We're a little bit nervous about doing that because we don't want like everybody to just download it and start trying to do all kinds of stuff. But so that's what's coming. And once we get through that phase, which I think will be probably early June, we're gonna open it up everywhere. We're gonna put literally tens of millions of bounties all over the planet.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I just want to really quick touch back on the sustainability thing. And I know I've taken up way too much of your time today, so I apologize. As I said, I tend to talk, but I do want to, because I think it's important to talk about this in general, not just for Dexioprotocol, but for your listeners. And I think this is something that, based on the conversation that we've had today, that I think you would probably agree with. Yes, blockchain is the future, and yes, crypto is a very important part of that. Those are two different things. People tend to conflate. I mean, they're connected together, but they're not the same thing. You can have blockchains without crypto; they exist, but you can't have crypto without blockchains, right? So yes, blockchain is definitely the future. Crypto is definitely a big part of that future. But the reality is that we're not going to get rid of fiat business, currencies, and we're not going to get rid of government-backed currencies anytime in the near future. And so the step towards this is a hybridization of your business model to include not just crypto-based business, like what you were talking about, closing that loop, that other 25%. To me, that's including the inclusion of traditional revenue streams like marketing, advertising, transaction fees. Okay. Things that are already being done by major projects like Solana, right? Solana's hooked up with MasterCard and Visa, and they're getting transaction fees, right? They have revenue coming in, right? Because what you're talking about is having a war chest of capital to be able to wait through the down times. And you do need that. You have to have reserves in place to be able to sustain yourself through, periods like we're having right now, right? So, those traditional business models, again, marketing, advertising, transactions, lots of other things, the ticketing that I talked about, which I think is really exciting, all of those things, that's going to be a part of this. And if you can create a crypto project that has utility, has great applications, a good ecosystem to, bring new people in, give them products that they know, that they can trust because they come from the project that you're already using their application, their gaming application. That's why we're building all these other applications, our wallet, our swap, all these things, right? And then create revenue models in that are reasonable and sustainable, and use that money to fund the business, fund development, create that war chest, right? At the same time, you're developing more and more of the utility function of your technology, the utility function of your tokens, and the technology of whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you can do those things, you're going to close that loop, right? That's where the sustainability factor comes in, because real dollars are not going away anytime soon. I know, again, there's the crypto anarchists in the world. Bitcoin's the future. It's all going to be. No, it's not. Okay, that's maybe in 100 years, I don't know, but definitely not in the next 5 years. Definitely not in the next 10 years. We have to look at this as being, these things need to be connected together. And there's actually major industry players who are advocating for this and doing this, already. I've talked a lot about somebody I'm a huge fan of. I don't know if you know who she is, but Caitlin Long from Custodia Bank in Wyoming, super brilliant woman. A lot of great things to say. I saw her speak at the Bitcoin 2022 and was just like, we need to put her in charge of things. Like she's, So, but there's a lot of other industry leaders too. And they're all kind of saying the same things. And one of the things that you and I talked about in the beginning of this conversation is that in order to stabilize this thing, and again, as we talked about, Bitcoin and the NASDAQ look like the same chart, right? And that there's a reason for that, because the money that's in these things are following each other, right? In order for those things to become decoupled from one another, we're going to have real money, the real moneyed forces. Things like Vanguard, Fidelity, we talked about this, CalPERS, these big investment funds to start getting into crypto. And in order for that to happen, we have to have this hybridization of things, and we have to have regulation in place. And without those things, we're screwed. And I mean, we're screwed. Like, we're going to be stuck in this, pegged system with the stock market forever if we don't get real money in there. And again, the reason why we need real money in there is not that there isn't real money, but I mean, like, we're talking about, CalPERS, like this is not a, Fidelity, that kind of stuff, right? The reason why we need that in there is because those people, they haven't, those business
entities, companies,
they have an army of lobbyists. They have they're going to advocate. If they have money in it, they're going to advocate for protections, not just for consumers, but also for the businesses and for the investment funds that are in those, in crypto. And we need all that stuff. And we need smart people. We need transparent and authentic people like you and the people from your show. I'm not just kissing ass, man. I mean that. We need people. And I said this to a lot of people, to John Wingate, I mentioned from Bank Social, one of our, a friend of the project, Tyler Hill and Alexander Lorenzo. These guys are, YouTube, Twitter influencers, but smart, authentic, genuine, transparent people who are interested in the longevity, the future of crypto, right? The sustainability of crypto and blockchain. That's what we're all interested in, and I think we can find our way there. We just have to continue to advocate for that regulation, continue to advocate for the hybridization of crypto and traditional revenue streams so that we can balance those things, and continue to advocate for large investment funds to help support this technology.
Right. And, I think that is a great final thought to wrap up with. And to get to a point of sustainability, we have to keep finding ways, that more traditional ways of business models and revenues to be able to come in. And as Greg was saying, one of the ways that we can continue to do this is to have some of the big institutional money be able to come in, and the path forward for that is through regulation. So we need to continue to build regulation and have the parameters and have the nice box that is given so that we know how we can start playing within these environments, so that these big institutions can now have safeguards in place so that they know they can start to mitigate their risk. They can start to do the risk assessments so that they can feel more confident to pour in some of their money and resources into this space. And you start to see really big movements up in the right direction as it relates to crypto. So, I mean, we unpacked a lot today, Greg. I think this has been a really interesting conversation. I'm sure all of our listeners are going to enjoy it as well. And again, I really do appreciate you spending some time with us today. I know you mentioned a couple ways that people can connect with you, but go ahead and say that one more time. How can people continue to learn more about everything happening over at Dexioprotocol?
Yeah, so probably the best way to communicate, and you can communicate directly with me. I'm still very involved with our Telegram chat, which is if you go to Telegram, it's Dexio chat. You follow our Twitter at Dexioprotocol. You can follow my Twitter, Dexonian, on Twitter. We're really not that. If you go to our website, Dexioprotocol.com, again, you can see in my name, the Chief Operating Officer of Dexio Protocol. You can find all of our socials and stuff there. And one of the things I'm proud of is that Don and I and Andrea and some of the other executives on our team, we've maintained a very close connection to our community through Telegram and Twitter, and sometimes that's hard because there's literally 1,000 people sometimes talking to me, but and that can be challenging in some ways, but it's been really rewarding too, and it's actually been a great resource for us to continue to get really good ideas, right? I saw some Twitter feed, yesterday or something, that somebody was remarking that crypto Twitter is the only place where people with a $1,000 investment bag can tell somebody with a $10 million investment bag how to do their investments, and sort of a joke, right? And I made a joke that come to Telegram where, all day long I'm being yelled at by people who have a $10 bag that I haven't turned that into $100,000 yet,
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the obsession is with Lambos. It's just the Lambo. They're not cute cars anyway. Or functional in any way. But on the flip side of that, crypto gives voice to people, right? It does. and people who wouldn't normally have a voice often have really important messages. And so those messages are being heard and being picked up on through social media and through other things. So we're grateful for the opportunity to connect with people in that way. And again, go to Dexioprotocol.com and follow our social medias, reach out to us. And I hope that people come and ask, whatever questions they want to and trying to understand what we're doing. And we're not perfect. We've made mistakes along the way. I think the difference between being successful in things, my experience in being successful with things is not making mistakes. It's recognizing that you've made a mistake and learning from that mistake and moving on, right? As Mark Twain.
Absolutely.
Good choices come from experience, and experience comes from bad choices. So
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. So everyone listening, make sure you go and check them out. Go be a part of their community. And again, Greg, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And for everyone listening, stay cryptocurrent.